Brendan Rodgers, what a manager! Brendan Rodgers has just managed Leicester City to their first ever FA Cup title, which is absolutely mental considering 2 years ago when he took over the Foxes, they were 12th place on the Premier League table. So to be able to fast forward 2 years, they've now won their first ever FA Cup and they're playing European football on a regular basis. What a magical 2 years it has been with Brendan Rodgers at Leicester City. But my question to you guys is, what exactly is it about Brendan Rodgers that he's changed about Leicester City? What has he changed about Leicester City to turn them from title pretenders into FA Cup winners? And that is exactly what we'll be talking about today. We'll be talking about the changes that Brendan Rodgers has made to this Leicester City side, which before I go any further, congratulations Leicester City on your first ever FA Cup title. Look, many people when Leicester City won the Premier League 5 years ago thought it was a fluke. They thought Leicester City would never win anything again, but no, they've just beaten Chelsea in an FA Cup final. The same Chelsea that has won this competition multiple times before, the same Chelsea that is in the Champions League final this year. They beat that Chelsea in an FA Cup final, which is absolutely huge. And Brendan Rodgers, just the one Roger. Brendan Rodgers has transformed this team completely in the 2 years that he's been at the club, and that is exactly why I want to talk about it today. What is it about Brendan Rodgers that is so special? And I feel like the best way to start this off is by looking at his first ever starting 11 with Leicester City on the 3rd of March 2019, when Leicester City were 12th on the Premier League table, and his first ever game in charge was a 2-1 loss versus Watford, which is absolutely insane. And you think, well, you know what, he's just won the FA Cup. Surely, like most clubs, he's brought in a lot of players, he's spent a lot of money. It's the only way to succeed in the modern era of football. Well, not exactly. Looking at his first ever starting 11, a 2-1 loss to Watford, and this is almost identical to his starting lineup today. There are literally only 2 players in that starting lineup that no longer play for Leicester City, being Chilwell and Harry Maguire. Everyone else there either played in this FA Cup final, were on the bench, or were suffering from injuries. And the exact reason I wanted to bring this up was to show you how special Brendan Rodgers is. Look, in terms of a career, he's been spectacular. He brought Swansea to the Premier League. He won a treble with Celtic. He almost won the Premier League with Liverpool. What a fantastic manager Brendan Rodgers is. And the fact that he's used almost an identical team that lost to Watford 2 years ago to win an FA Cup final versus Chelsea, I mean, that is absolutely magical. And that's why I want to bring up my first point about why Brendan Rodgers is so special: player development and role control. And by that I mean player development, I'm talking about young players that need to truly find what they're really, really good at. And also in terms of role control, by that I mean players who are really, really good in their position, maybe more experienced players like Jamie Vardy or Ndidi, to really perfect their role. Now, I feel like the perfect example of player development has to be Harvey Barnes up front, which probably might be the most English name I have ever heard. But Harvey Barnes, you know what, when Brendan Rodgers arrived at the club, look, Harvey Barnes has always been a player that's been known for his pace and his ability on the ball, how good he is with his control. But Brendan Rodgers has really helped him perfect his pace, how to run into the right areas and how to use his pace to become a threat in the box. Now, unfortunately, Harvey Barnes didn't play in the FA Cup final due to injury. But you know what? Because of Brendan Rodgers really helping him perfect his role and his pace, he is one of the top scoring English wingers in the entire world at the moment. Look, Brendan Rodgers is like the football version of Liam Neeson. I mean, he's Irish, and let's be honest, he kicks some ass, because this Premier League season, his Leicester City team is the only team in the Premier League not to fall outside of the top 4 since match week 1. I would say after Manchester City, this Leicester City side, Brendan Rodgers' Rodgers, I don't know, we're going to roll with it. This Leicester City team is probably the most consistent in the league over the last 2 years, bar maybe Manchester City. They have been that good. I would say their only problem is they tend to fall off towards the end of the season. They lose a tiny bit of momentum, and that's why they played Europa League this season. And you know what? They're starting to lose a few points come the end of this season, but hopefully they can pick it up. They are guaranteed a Champions League spot, which is absolutely spectacular. And I want to ask you guys, put down in the comment section down below, where do you guys think Leicester City will end up in the Champions League next season? Do you think they'll make it past the group stage? Look, obviously the groups and that haven't been released. But guys, there's a possibility Leicester City could be in the Champions League next season, but Juventus won't be. Can we think about that? Now back to talking about player development. As I said, Harvey Barnes is a great example of players that have developed under the likes of Brendan Rodgers. I feel like two other great examples in the midfield positions would be Maddison and Tielemans. Look, obviously Tielemans scored that world-class goal in that FA Cup final, and I'll say this, I feel like in that FA Cup final, everyone who wasn't a Chelsea fan genuinely supported Leicester City. I feel like every other football fan in the world supported Leicester City, but what a world-class goal. But you know what, Maddison and Tielemans, when they moved to Leicester City, I feel like that's all they could really do. But under Brendan Rodgers, just like Harvey Barnes, taught them how to get into the right areas and how to actually create those chances to score those goals. Otherwise, you do end up being a player like Ruben Neves from Wolves, who, yes, can score those world-class goals, but without really being able to do anything else, he doesn't have much more to his game. And you know what? I feel like that's what Brendan Rodgers has adapted to Tielemans and Maddison. But it's not only attacking players. I feel like a player like Soyuncu, who's incredibly good on the ball, very fast for a centre-back, and on his day is one of the best in the league, in my opinion. But he was very aggressive and gave away way too many sloppy fouls originally in the Premier League. But under Brendan Rodgers, became a much more composed centre-back, and because of that, on a regular basis, is much more consistent, gives away way less fouls, and because of that, genuinely one of the best centre-backs in the league on his day. Now, obviously, as I said, he does help the young players really develop, but he also helps role control, and by that I mean experienced players like Jamie Vardy. I mean, he has more energy than anyone I've ever met. He'll run and attack a fullback if given the option. We all know the story about him having like 100,000,001. That is not a number. That really shows him South African, doesn't it?
769,820.
But we've all heard the story about how many Red Bulls Jamie Vardy has, and you can really tell it in a game. I mean, it looks like he has 3 Red Bulls before the game, 3 during halftime, and probably 1 on the pitch. He uses that energy. But before Brendan Rodgers, he really liked to attack all over the pitch. But due to Brendan Rodgers really focusing in a striker position, he really has taught him to be more conservative with his energy. Also, like players with Ndidi, another experienced player when it comes to role control, he's really taught him to win balls in the midfield and to really focus on that. That's something he's always been great at. So instead of becoming more of a box-to-box midfielder, being absolutely everywhere in the pitch, I feel like Brendan Rodgers has really told Ndidi to focus on what he's good at, and because of that, he's one of the best holding midfielders in the league, in my opinion. And genuinely, I would compare him to Kante. I would genuinely compare him to the likes of N'Golo Kante on his day when it comes to winning possession in the midfield, because Brendan Rodgers has really told him to focus on that. He's really, I would say, the best in the league along with Kante. Next up, in terms of Brendan Rodgers, I want to talk about the 90th minute push. And by that, I mean out of every single Premier League club this season, no team has scored more goals in the final 15 minutes than Leicester City, meaning they pushed for the full 90 minutes. And because of that, they've won some valuable points. The one that obviously comes to mind, in my opinion, has to be that game versus Brighton. But to push for the full 90 minutes is so important, because we've seen so many teams like Tottenham Hotspurs, Chelsea, Everton, some big teams lose some valuable points because they seem to slack off towards the end of the game. But you know, pushing for the full 90 minutes can be crucial. I mean, look, Brendan Rodgers, yes, his first season at the club wasn't a full season, it was only a matter of months, but Leicester City in the 2018-2019 season only managed about 51 goals that season, where this season, with about 2 games left, they've got 65 goals. So if you push for that full 90 minutes, you can get yourself not just some valuable goals, but some valuable points that will win games. The next point I have for you guys is genuinely going to be the biggest one on this list, as it is going to be the ability to adapt, which Leicester City definitely have that on lockdown, which, sorry, I shouldn't use that phrase. It's going to give you guys a lot of PTSD from the last year. But Leicester City's ability to adapt this season has been crucial to their success. And we've seen many teams fail over the last year or so due to their lack of ability to adapt. I think a great example of that has to be Liverpool. When they've had problems in defense when it comes to injuries, they've had no ability to adapt, unfortunately. And when you look at their front three, look, I'm not going to say 100% of the time, but at least 99.7269% of the time, you're almost guaranteed to have Salah, Mane, and Firmino up front, which makes it a lot easier to predict. And that lack of ability to adapt, I mean, as I said, it's so easy to read as the opposition. You might as well put Braille on Firmino's forehead. I mean, the only ability to adapt in this Liverpool team is by turning their teeth whiter. It seems like the only adaptation that they're able to make. But looking at this Leicester City team, they have been brilliant with their ability to adapt this season. I mean, there have been times this season where Vardy's been injured, Maddison, the entire back four have been injured and they've had the ability to adapt. They are not so dependent on Vardy up front. I used to compare it to Tottenham Hotspurs, how they used to be so dependent on Harry Kane, and they still are. They're going to struggle if they lose a striker like that. Where if you look at Leicester City, they're not so dependent on Vardy anymore. If Vardy is in, they can play Iheanacho there, which also obviously goes down to squad development and player development. I mean, even if they needed to, they can move Harvey Barnes from a left wing position to a striker position. If Maddison is injured, they can play Albrighton there, they can play Pratt there, they can play Tielemans there. If you look at their defense, they could play 3 defenders, 4 defenders. They can adapt the whole back four. I mean, there was genuinely a stage where they had none of their 4 main defenders, and they played in Ndidi in a centre-back position. Obviously, Fofana wasn't originally in the starting lineup, and he came in as a Soyuncu replacement. I feel like the best example of being able to adapt is Castagna. He can play as a left back, right back, left midfielder, right midfielder, anywhere on the pitch. And to have multiple players in your team that can play in different positions, that is huge. And a lot of that does obviously go down to squad depth, which takes me to my next point of transfers. How busy has Brendan Rodgers been in terms of transfers at the club? Well, looking over the last 2 years, the only 2 major players that have left the club is going to include the likes of Chilwell to Chelsea and Harry Maguire to Manchester United. Please don't remind me about Slabhead. Look, those are 2 very decent players, but to sell both of those for £130 million and to be able to bring in players with that money like Tielemans, Pratt, Castagna, Fofana, and multiple other really good players, to be able to bring in 6 or 7 quality players just by selling 2 good players, that is huge. And I have to give a lot of credit to this whole Leicester City team. I mean, not just Brendan Rodgers, but who's ever in charge of transfers. Give that man a medal. And ladies and gentlemen, that brings me to my final point about Leicester City and what Brendan Rodgers has made so great about the squad. And this last point, look, it's not necessarily just Brendan Rodgers, but I did just want to bring up this point about Leicester City, why they've come into so much success and why they've been doing so well over the last few years. And I believe it is down to support from the owner and the manager. Now I'm going to start off with the owner. Now this obviously has nothing to do with Brendan Rodgers, but a huge reason to why Leicester City do so well, why quite few players end up leaving this club, is because of the family feeling at this club. I mean, we saw the owner after Leicester City won the FA Cup final. He was down there talking to the players, hugging the trophy. He was so happy. Where if you look at a team like if Manchester United won the FA Cup, genuinely, I don't think the Glazers would have even been at the stadium. I feel like that family feeling and the owner making the players feel important and actually being in love with the club is huge to a club's success, because if you feel like you are important to a club, you're going to want to do the best to your ability, Where if you look at Brendan Rodgers as a manager, once again, I feel like he is the perfect manager for this system, because he doesn't just look at the starting 11, he looks at the full 23-man squad and he makes them feel important. That's why he works so perfectly under this owner, because someone like Iozo Perez, who won't play for months but will start an FA Cup final or will play a full 90 minutes of a game, to be able to make your full 23-man squad feel important, that is huge. And I feel like that is one of the most underrated things Brendan Rodgers has done to the squad. He has made everyone feel important and made the squad feel like a family, and to that I truly believe success goes down to feeling important at this club and the moral just feeling of this club. He has made everyone happy. Okay guys, that will be the end of today's video where I talk about Brendan Rodgers and what he has done to this Leicester City team, what he has changed about this team, and how he's created so much magic over the last 2 years. Obviously winning this FA Cup final was absolutely huge for the club and their history, becoming the 44th club to win this trophy. And you know what, Brendan Rodgers, I hope you win many more trophies with this Leicester City team. Once again guys, tell me in the comment section down below, do you guys think Leicester City will win another trophy anytime soon? And how well do you think they'll do in the Champions League next season? Guys, this has been Finn FYWN. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not subscribed already, so close to 1,000 subscribers, and like this video down below. Can we get it to 20 likes? But guys, this has been Finn FYWN. I'll catch you next time. Cheers.